Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the human ship Liberty's Dream, watching the stars move past the windows. The ship was traveling through space at incredible speeds, but Jake felt worried. 3 hours ago, they had received a message that changed everything. The message came from the Galactic Council, the group that controlled most of the galaxy. It was not a friendly invitation. The words were cold and demanding. Humanity must appear before the Grand Assembly immediately. This is not a request. Captain Lisa Rodriguez walked up to Jake, holding a datapad in her hands. Lisa was responsible for talking to alien species for humanity. She had studied their languages and customs for years. Her face looked serious. "Admiral, I have been studying the message more carefully," Lisa said. "The tone is very aggressive. This is not normal for the Council. Usually they are more polite, even when they disagree with someone." Jake nodded. He had been thinking the same thing. In the 5 years since humanity joined the galactic community, the Council had never used such harsh language. Something big was happening. "What do you think they want?" Jake asked. Lisa looked at her datapad. "I have been monitoring galactic news networks. 3 major powers have been complaining about humanity recently. The Kron Empire says we are expanding too fast. The Veil Consortium claims we are stealing their technology. The Elder Syndicate believes we are too dangerous to remain free." Jake felt his stomach tighten. These 3 powers controlled most of the galaxy between them. The Kron Empire had the strongest military. They loved war and conquered other species for fun. The Veil Consortium had the best technology. They treated other species like children who needed guidance. The Elder Syndicate was the oldest group in the galaxy. They believed younger species should serve them. "How many systems have we colonized in the past year?" Jake asked. 12, Lisa replied. All of them were empty. No other species claimed them. We followed all the proper rules. Jake knew this was true. Humanity had been very careful to follow galactic law. They only took planets that nobody else wanted. They shared their discoveries with other species. They helped smaller groups when asked. Yet somehow this made the major powers angry. "They see us as a threat," Jake said quietly. Lisa nodded. "Our technology has improved very quickly. 50 years ago, humans could barely travel between planets. Now we have ships that can cross the galaxy in weeks. This makes them nervous." Jake walked to his private office behind the bridge. Once inside, he activated a special communication device. This device used quantum encryption, making it impossible for anyone to listen to his conversations. Only a few humans knew it existed. The face of Admiral Ben Carter appeared on the screen. Ben was in charge of Earth Defense Command, humanity's main military organization. He looked tired and worried. "Jake, I was hoping you would call," Ben said. "We have been monitoring increased military activity from all 3 major powers. They are moving ships toward human space." "How many ships?" Jake asked. "Too many," Ben replied. "If they decide to attack us, our public fleet cannot stop them. We have maybe 300 ships that the galaxy knows about. They have thousands." Jake took a deep breath. "Ben, how ready is Protocol Omega?" Ben's expression became very serious. Protocol Omega was humanity's biggest secret. For 60 years, humans had been preparing for this day. While the galaxy saw a young species learning to travel in space, humanity had been working on something much bigger. "The hidden fleets are at 95% readiness," Ben said. "The new ships are complete. The weapon systems are tested. The crews are trained. We just need your order." Jake felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. If he gave the wrong order, humanity might be destroyed. If he gave the right order, the galaxy would never be the same. Not yet, Jake said. We need to see what they actually want first. Maybe we can solve this peacefully. Ben looked doubtful. Jake, our intelligence reports suggest they have already decided. The Kron Empire has been telling other species that humans are a virus that needs to be stopped. The Veil Consortium has been spreading rumors that we stole their technology. The Elder Syndicate claims we are too aggressive to be trusted. What about our allies? Jake asked. The smaller species are too afraid to help us, Ben replied. The major powers have made it clear that anyone who supports humanity will face consequences. Jake felt anger building inside him. Humanity had done nothing wrong. They had followed every rule, helped every species that asked, and shared their knowledge freely. Yet the galaxy's bullies wanted to destroy them simply because humans were successful. How long until we reach Nexus Prime? Jake asked. 18 hours, Ben replied. Jake, I know you want to try diplomacy first, but we need to be ready. This is a trap. If they plan to arrest you or declare war during the assembly, we need to respond quickly. Jake understood. Prepare the first phase of Protocol Omega, but keep it hidden. Do not activate anything until I give the direct order. Understood, Ben said. Jake, be careful. Our spies report that some council members want to make an example of humanity. They think if they crush us, it will scare other young species into staying quiet. The communication ended. Jake sat alone in his office, thinking about the future. Humanity had come so far in such a short time. When he was a child, humans had barely reached their own moon. Now they had colonies across the galaxy and technology that amazed even ancient species, but success had made them enemies. The old powers did not want competition. They preferred a galaxy where they made all the decisions and everyone else followed orders. Jake returned to the bridge. Lisa was still studying her datapad, trying to understand what would happen at the assembly. Any new information? Jake asked. The assembly has been called with unusual speed, Lisa said. Normally, they give months of notice for major meetings. This was arranged in just 3 days. Also, they have invited military observers from all 3 major powers. That is very unusual for a diplomatic assembly. Jake felt his worry increase. Military observers meant this was not just about talking. They were expecting trouble. How many human colonies are close to major power territories? Jake asked. 7, Lisa replied. If they wanted to attack those colonies, they could do it. Quickly, while we are at the assembly. Jake realized this might be a trap. Get humanity's main representatives far from Earth, then attack the colonies while they were away. It was a classic military strategy. He looked out at the stars again. In 18 hours, he would face the most powerful beings in the galaxy. They would probably try to humiliate humanity, maybe even threaten war. But they had no idea what they were really dealing with. Humanity had learned to be patient and careful. While the galaxy's powers had grown comfortable and lazy, humans had been preparing for the worst. Soon, the galaxy would discover that laughing at humanity had been a terrible mistake. The Grand Assembly Hall on Nexus Prime was enormous. The ceiling stretched so high that Jake Morrison could barely see it. Hundreds of different alien species sat in curved rows that formed a giant circle. Each species had their own section with seats designed for their particular body type. Jake and Lisa Rodriguez sat in the human section, which was noticeably smaller than the areas given to major powers. Their seats were also lower, forcing them to look up at most other representatives. Jake realized this was intentional. The Council wanted humanity to feel small and unimportant. The air buzzed with alien conversations in dozens of languages. Some species communicated with sounds humans could not hear. Others used flashing lights or chemical signals. Translation. Devices worked constantly to help everyone understand each other. Jake looked around the hall. The Kron Empire section was massive, with seats made of black metal. The Kron themselves were huge, muscular beings with thick skin and sharp teeth. They looked like they were built for war, and they were. The Kron had conquered over 200 worlds in the past century. The Veil Consortium area glowed with soft blue light. The Veil were not physical beings like humans. They looked like floating crystals that could change shape and color. Their technology was so advanced that other species often thought it was magic. The Elder Syndicate section was made of ancient stone, carved with symbols older than human civilization. The Elders looked somewhat like humans, but their skin was pale gray, and their eyes were completely black. They claimed to have ruled the galaxy long before any other current species existed. Chancellor Vex of the Kron Empire stood up first. He was over 8 feet tall, and his voice boomed across the assembly hall. Even with translation devices, his words sounded threatening. "Fellow members of the Galactic Council," Vex began, "we face a serious problem. The species called humanity has been violating the natural order of our galaxy." Jake felt his anger rise, but he stayed calm. Lisa placed a warning hand on his arm. Vex continued, "In just 50 years, humans have spread to dozens of worlds. They claim these worlds are empty, but they take resources that rightfully belong to established powers. They build colonies without asking permission from their betters." Holographic displays appeared in the center of the hall, showing maps of human colonies. The displays made it look like humanity was aggressively expanding in all directions, threatening everyone. "Furthermore," Vex said, his voice getting louder, "humans have been stealing technology from superior species. They could not have advanced so quickly on their own. They must be copying our designs and claiming them as their own inventions." Jake could not stay quiet anymore. He stood up and requested permission to speak. The council chairman, a tall being with 4 arms and green skin, nodded. "Honorable Chancellor Vex," Jake said, keeping his voice respectful, "humanity has followed all colonization protocols established by this council. Every world we have settled was officially designated as unclaimed. We have submitted all required documentation and paid all proper fees." Several alien species made sounds that the translation devices identified as laughter. Jake realized they found his careful adherence to rules amusing. Prime Calculator Zin of the Veil Consortium floated forward. When Zin spoke, the words seemed to come from the air itself, rather than from the crystal being. "The human representative speaks of rules and documentation," Zin said in a voice like musical chimes. "But observe these technological advancement patterns." New holographic displays showed human technology development over time. The displays were designed to make human progress look impossible without outside help. 50 Earth years ago, humans barely understood faster-than-light travel. Now they possess quantum drive systems that approach Veil Consortium efficiency levels. Such advancement violates known development patterns for species of their age and origin. Lisa leaned over to Jake and whispered, "They are using selective data. They are not showing our research documentation or development timelines." Jake stood again. "Prime Calculator Zin, humanity has shared all research data with the Council's Technology Assessment Board. Our advancement comes from dedicated research and innovation, not theft. More laughter echoed through the hall. This time it was louder and more mocking. Jake realized that most of the council had already decided humanity was guilty before the assembly even began. Ambassador Korath of the Elder Syndicate rose slowly from his ancient stone chair. When he spoke, his voice was cold and dismissive. Young species often believe their small achievements are significant, Korath said. Humans are like children playing with tools they do not understand. They spread across the galaxy without wisdom, taking what they please without considering the consequences. Korath gestured toward the human section with obvious contempt. Look at them. 2 representatives for an entire species, sitting in the smallest section of this assembly. They demand to be treated as equals to powers that ruled the galaxy before. Their son was born. The Elder Syndicate representative activated another holographic display. This one showed military incidents near human space over the past year. Humans have been involved in conflicts with 17 different species, Korath continued. They claim self-defense, but the pattern is clear. They are aggressive and dangerous. If we allow this to continue, they will eventually threaten all peaceful species in the galaxy. Jake knew this was completely false. In every incident shown, humans had been attacked first or had been defending smaller species from bullies. But the way the information was presented made humanity look like the aggressor. Ambassador Korath, Jake said, standing once more. In each incident you have shown, humanity was either defending ourselves or protecting smaller species from attack. We have never initiated aggression against any council member. The laughter this time was so loud it hurt Jake's ears. When it finally died down, Chancellor Vex spoke again. The human representative talks of protection and defense, Vex said with obvious amusement. What could a species barely 50 years in space possibly protect anyone from? Humans have no significant military power. They have no advanced technology we do not understand better. They are insignificant. Prime calculator. Zin floated higher, drawing attention. The Veil Consortium has analyzed human military capabilities. Their largest ships are primitive by our standards. Their weapons are based on outdated designs. Their total fleet consists of perhaps 300 vessels, most of which are transport and exploration ships rather than military craft. Ambassador Korath nodded in agreement. The Elder Syndicate concurs with this assessment. Humanity poses no military threat to any established power. Their danger lies in their disruptive influence on galactic order and their bad example to other young species. The council chairman called for order as the assembly grew noisy with discussion. After several minutes, he spoke. The council has heard the concerns of the major powers and the response of humanity. We will now vote on proposed restrictions to address these issues. Jake felt his heart sink as the restrictions were read aloud. Humanity would have to give up half of their colonies. All human technology development would be supervised by council inspectors. Human ships would be limited in number and capabilities. Most importantly, all human military activities would be monitored by stations placed in every human system. The vote was not even close. Of the 237 species represented, only 12 voted against the restrictions. Most of these were smaller species that humanity had helped in the past, but they were too afraid to speak openly. The council has decided, the chairman announced. Humanity has 30 standard days to comply with these restrictions. Failure to comply will result in immediate sanctions and possible military intervention. As the assembly broke up, Jake could hear alien representatives laughing and talking among themselves. The major powers were clearly pleased with the outcome. They had successfully humiliated humanity in front of the entire galaxy. Lisa walked beside Jake as they left the hall. Her face was pale with shock and anger. "They planned this from the beginning," Lisa said quietly. "The evidence was prepared in advance. The vote was decided before we even arrived." Jake nodded. "They wanted to make an example of us. Show other young species what happens when you become too successful too quickly." As they reached their ship, Jake noticed Kron military vessels moving into position around Nexus Prime. The message was clear. If humanity tried to resist the Council's decision, they would face immediate military action. Back aboard Liberty's Dream, Jake sat in his office and activated the quantum communicator. Admiral Ben Carter's face appeared on the screen, and Jake could see the anger in his old friend's eyes. "They didn't even pretend to be fair," Jake said. "This was a show trial from the beginning." "Our intelligence reports confirm your suspicions," Ben replied. "The major powers have been planning this for months. They see humanity as a threat to their control over the galaxy." Jake felt tired and frustrated. Humanity had done everything right, followed every rule, helped every species that asked for aid. Yet the galaxy's bullies had decided that success itself was a crime. "Ben, begin Phase 2 of Protocol Omega," Jake said quietly. "Make it look like we are complying with their demands, but prepare for the worst." Admiral Jake Morrison sat in his quarters aboard Liberty's Dream, staring at the Council's formal demands. The document was 12 pages long and written in the coldest legal language he had ever seen. Lisa Rodriguez sat across from him, going through each requirement with growing anger. "They want us to surrender 14 of our colonies," Lisa said, her voice tight with controlled fury. "These include New Montana, which has 3 million human settlers, and Kepler Station, our main research facility." Jake rubbed his temples. The headache that had started during the assembly was getting worse. "What about the technology oversight?" "Every human research project must be approved by a council inspector before it can begin," Lisa replied. "All of our existing technology must be reviewed and approved or banned. They want complete access to our computer systems, our manufacturing facilities, and our military databases." The worst part was the monitoring stations. The major powers wanted to place armed platforms in every human system. These stations would track all human ship movements and could attack any vessel they deemed suspicious. It was like putting guards in every human home. "This isn't about compliance," Jake said quietly. "They want to destroy us as an independent species." Lisa nodded. "The monitoring stations alone would make it impossible for us to defend ourselves if they decided to attack later. We would be completely helpless." A communication alert chimed. Jake activated his personal communicator and saw the worried face of Captain Danny Sullivan. Danny commanded the merchant vessel Golden Horizon, one of hundreds of human ships that carried trade goods throughout the galaxy. "Admiral Morrison," Danny said, his voice shaking with anger, "I need to report an attack on my ship." Jake felt his stomach drop. "What happened?" "We were traveling through the neutral zone, carrying medical supplies to the Terran colony on Epsilon 7, Danny explained. 3 Kron patrol ships intercepted us. They demanded we submit to a compliance inspection, even though the Council restrictions don't take effect for 29 more days." Lisa leaned forward. "Did you comply?" "Of course," Danny replied. "We have nothing to hide. But when they boarded my ship, they confiscated our entire cargo. They said medical supplies could be used for military purposes. Then they planted some kind of tracking device on our hull." Jake felt his anger building. "Are you and your crew safe?" "We are now," Danny said, But, Admiral, they made it clear. This was just the beginning. The Crone officer told me that human ships would no longer be welcome in civilized space. They are already treating us like we are conquered. The communication ended. Jake immediately contacted Admiral Ben Carter using the secure quantum channel. Ben's face appeared on the screen, and he looked even more worried than before. Jake, we are receiving similar reports from all over human space, Ben said without waiting for Jake to speak. The major powers are not waiting for the 30-day deadline. They are already moving against our ships and colonies. How many incidents? Jake asked. 47 in the past 6 hours, Ben replied. The Crone Empire is inspecting human vessels and confiscating anything they want. The Veil Consortium is jamming our communications in 12 systems. The Elder Syndicate has declared 3 of our trade routes to be temporarily closed for safety reasons. Jake realized the truth. The Council Assembly had been a show for the smaller species. The major powers had already decided to destroy humanity, and they were using the 30-day compliance period to position their forces and begin smaller attacks. What about our colonies? Jake asked. Governor Helen Brooks on New Virginia is reporting Kron ships near the system border, Ben said. They are not attacking yet, but they are clearly preparing for something. Director Frank Johnson on Kepler Station says Veil Consortium vessels are scanning the research facility with deep penetration sensors. Jake felt the weight of responsibility crushing down on him. Millions of human lives depended on the decisions he made in the next few hours. If he chose wrong, humanity could be wiped out completely. Ben, are our hidden assets still undetected? Jake asked. As far as we know, Ben replied. The major powers are so confident in their intelligence that they are not looking for anything they do not already know about. They think they know exactly how strong humanity is. Jake thought about this. For 60 years, humanity had carefully managed their public image. They had shown the galaxy exactly what they wanted to see, a young, weak species that was lucky to have survived this long. The major powers had no idea what humans had really been doing during those decades. Jake, we need to make a decision soon, Ben continued. Our deep space monitors are tracking massive fleet movements from all 3 major powers. The Crone Empire has over 800 ships moving toward human space. The Veil Consortium is deploying their advanced battleship designs. The Elder Syndicate is activating fleets that have been in storage for centuries. How long until they are in position to attack? Jake asked. The Kron will reach our border systems in 4 days, Ben replied. The others are about a day behind them. Jake, if we wait much longer, it will be too late to respond effectively. Jake stood up and walked to the window of his quarters. Outside, he could see alien ships moving around Nexus Prime. Many of them were military vessels from the major powers. They were not even trying to hide their preparation for war. Has there been any response from our allies? Jake asked. Ben shook his head. The smaller species are too terrified to help us. The major powers have made it clear that anyone who supports humanity will face the same treatment. A few species have sent private messages expressing regret, but none are willing to take action. Jake understood. The galaxy operated on the principle that might made right. The strong did whatever they wanted, and the weak had to accept it or be destroyed. Humanity was supposed to be weak, so they were expected to accept destruction quietly. What about the public human fleet? Jake asked. Admiral Kate Davis is following Protocol 7, Ben replied. Her ships are withdrawing from contested areas and making a show of compliance with the Council's demands. To outside observers, it looks like humanity is giving up without a fight. This was exactly what they wanted the major powers to think. Let them believe that humans were cowards who would surrender rather than fight. Let them think that humanity's rapid expansion had been luck rather than planning. Ben, I need you to authorize the final preparations, Jake said quietly. All hidden facilities, all secret projects, all sleeping assets. Activate everything. Ben nodded grimly. Jake, once we do this, the galaxy will never be the same. Are you sure? Jake thought about Captain Danny Sullivan and his crew, threatened and humiliated for trying to deliver medical supplies. He thought about the millions of human settlers who were about to lose their homes. He thought about the council assembly, where humanity had been mocked and dismissed like children. They made their choice when they decided to destroy us, Jake said. We gave them every chance for peaceful coexistence. We followed their rules, helped their people, and shared our discoveries. They responded by planning our extinction. I understand, Ben replied. How long do you want to maintain the deception? Jake considered this carefully. They needed the major powers to commit fully to their attack. If the alien fleets were spread out and cautious, some might escape when humanity revealed its true strength. But if they were concentrated and overconfident, the revelation would be devastating. Wait until they cross into human space, Jake said. Let them think they are facing helpless prey. When they realize the truth, it will be too late for them to retreat. Ben smiled for the first time since the conversation began. Jake, they have no idea what they are about to face. 60 years of preparation, and they think we are still using chemical rockets and kinetic weapons. The communication ended. Jake returned to his chair, where Lisa was still reading through the council's demands. She looked up at him with questioning eyes. Admiral, are we really going to comply with these restrictions? She asked. Jake smiled grimly. Lisa, we are going to comply with exactly what they deserve. Nothing more, nothing less. Lisa studied his expression and seemed to understand. How long have we been preparing for this? Since the day we first met an alien species, Jake replied. We knew this day would come eventually. The strong always try to destroy the weak, unless the weak are prepared to fight back. Jake activated his personal communicator one more time and sent a coded message to every human colony, every human ship, and every human facility in the galaxy. The message was simple. The storm is coming. Take shelter. Within hours, humanity would begin the greatest deception in galactic history. They would appear to surrender while preparing for war. They would seem to comply while activating weapons the galaxy had never imagined. The major powers thought they were hunting sheep. Soon they would discover they had cornered wolves. Governor Helen Brooks stood on the observation deck of New Virginia's orbital station, watching the massive defense platforms being deactivated one by one. Each platform had taken years to build and represented the safety of 3 million human colonists. Now she was destroying them herself, and it felt like cutting off her own arms. Governor, the last platform is powering down, reported Colonel Mike Turner, her military advisor. All weapons are offline, and the self-destruct charges are set. Helen nodded, though every instinct screamed against what she was doing. Proceed with demolition. Make sure our Kron observers get clear footage of everything. Through the window, she could see Kron Empire ships watching from a safe distance. They had arrived 2 days ago, claiming to monitor humanity's compliance with the Council's demands. In reality, they were gathering intelligence for the invasion that everyone knew was coming. Bright flashes lit up space as the defense platforms exploded. Each explosion represented millions of credits and years of work. More importantly, each destroyed platform made New Virginia more vulnerable to attack. The Krone commander is requesting permission to inspect our planetary defense grid, Turner said, his voice tight with controlled anger. Tell him we will provide complete technical specifications tomorrow, Helen replied. We want to appear completely cooperative. What the Krone commander did not know was that the defense platforms he was watching were mostly empty shells. The real defensive systems were hidden deep underground and inside artificial asteroids. For 30 years, New Virginia had been building a secret military infrastructure that existed completely off the official records. Director Frank Johnson was conducting a similar performance at Kepler Station, humanity's primary research facility. He watched as his teams carefully boxed up decades of scientific equipment and loaded it onto transport ships. Director, the Veil Consortium inspectors want to examine our quantum computer systems, reported Dr. Sarah Martinez, his chief scientist. Show them everything they want to see, Frank replied. Give them complete access to our public research databases. The Veil inspectors would find exactly what they expected, research projects that were advanced for a young species but not threatening to established powers. They would never see the real laboratories built inside hollowed-out asteroids where human scientists had been developing technology that would amaze even the Veil Consortium. Admiral Kate Davis commanded the public face of humanity's military. Response. Her fleet of older ships was slowly withdrawing from contested systems, broadcasting surrender messages on all frequencies. Admiral, this feels wrong, said Captain Tony Murphy, commander of the cruiser Justice. We are running away from fights we could win. Kate understood his frustration. The ships under her command were good vessels with brave crews. In a fair fight, they could defeat most alien fleets. But this was not about fair fights. This was about making the enemy overconfident. Captain Murphy, our job is to make the major powers believe we are weak and cowardly, Kate replied. Every ship that retreats without fighting convinces them that humanity will not resist invasion. What the aliens watching her fleet did not know was that every retreating human ship was actually moving to predetermined positions. When the time came, these vessels would coordinate with hidden forces to trap the invading fleets. The deception was working perfectly. Across the galaxy, alien news networks were reporting on humanity's pathetic surrender. Military analysts from the major powers were publicly mocking human cowardice. Even smaller species that had once respected humanity were beginning to see them as weaklings. Captain Lisa Rodriguez was monitoring these reports from aboard Liberty's Dream. The alien reaction was exactly what humanity had hoped for, but it still hurt to see their species portrayed as cowards. Admiral Morrison, the Krone Empire's military channel is broadcasting footage of our ships fleeing from their patrols, Lisa reported. They are calling it the human collapse. Jake Morrison nodded grimly. Good. The more they underestimate us, the more complete their defeat will be. But not everyone was convinced by humanity's performance. Agent Nicole Scott, working deep undercover as a trade representative on the Krone homeworld, was hearing disturbing conversations. Admiral Thex, the Krone military commander, was speaking with his staff in what he thought was a secure room. Nicole's hidden listening devices picked up every word. The humans are surrendering too easily, Thex said, his voice suspicious. In every military engagement we have studied, humans fight fiercely even when defeat is certain. This passive response does not match their psychological profile. Nicole felt her heart race. If the Krone became suspicious, they might discover humanity's deception before the trap was ready. Perhaps they finally understand their place in the galaxy, suggested General Quarks, Thex's second-in-command. Even the most aggressive species can be broken by sufficient pressure. Maybe, Thex replied, but he did not sound convinced. Still, increase surveillance of human space. I want to know about every ship movement, every communication, every supply transport. Nicole immediately sent a coded warning to Admiral Carter on Earth. The message was hidden inside routine trade reports, but its meaning was clear. The enemy was becoming suspicious. Admiral Ben Carter received Nicole's warning while standing in the command center of Cheyenne Mountain, humanity's most secret military facility. The mountain had been hollowed out over 60 years, creating a vast underground complex that existed on no official map. "How much longer until we are ready?" Ben asked Colonel Steve Walsh, his intelligence chief. 18 hours for full deployment, Steve replied. "The hidden shipyards are finishing final preparations. The weapon systems are loaded and tested. All crew assignments are complete." Ben looked at the massive display screen showing the locations of human and alien forces throughout the galaxy. Red markers indicated major power fleets moving toward human space. Blue markers showed humanity's public forces retreating. But green markers, visible only on this secret display, showed the real human fleet positioning for battle. "What about our deep space assets?" Ben asked. "Captain Ryan Torres reports that Ghost Fleet Alpha is in position near the Kron staging area," Steve replied. "Captain Tony Murphy's ships are shadowing the Veil Consortium's main battle group. Commander Sarah Williams has eyes on the Elder Syndicate's ancient dreadnoughts." Ben smiled grimly. For 30 years, humanity had been building ships in hidden facilities and deploying them to secret bases throughout the galaxy. While the major powers watched humanity's public fleet of 300 vessels, they had no idea that over 2,000 human warships were waiting in the darkness. Dr. Amy Peterson entered the command center carrying a sealed briefcase. As head of humanity's Advanced Research Division, she had spent decades developing weapons that existed in no alien database. "Admiral Carter, the final weapons packages are ready for deployment," Amy said. "Quantum phase torpedoes, antimatter missiles, and the new space-time distortion cannons. Everything has been tested and approved for combat use." Ben opened the briefcase and looked at the authorization codes inside. These weapons represented technology that was 50 years ahead of anything the major powers possessed. Once they were used, the galaxy would know that humanity had been hiding incredible capabilities. "Dr. Peterson, are you certain these weapons will work against alien defensive systems?" Ben asked. "Absolutely," Amy replied. "We have been studying captured alien technology for decades. Their shields and armor are designed to stop conventional weapons. They have no defense against quantum phase attacks or space-time manipulation. The most important part of the deception was happening on Earth itself. While the galaxy watched humanity apparently dismantling their military, the real fleet was emerging from hidden bases that had been built inside asteroids, gas giant atmospheres, and even artificial planetoids. Commander Paul Jenkins oversaw the activation of Shipyard 7, hidden in the atmosphere of Jupiter. The facility had been disguised as a gas mining operation for 40 years. Now it revealed its true purpose as dozens of advanced warships emerged from the swirling clouds. "All ships report ready for deployment," Paul announced. "The new crews have completed their training. The stealth systems are functioning perfectly. These ships used technology that made them invisible to most sensors. They could travel through space undetected, strike without warning, and disappear before the enemy could respond. The major powers had no idea such capabilities existed, but the greatest deception was still to come. Admiral Carter activated a communication array that reached every hidden human facility in the galaxy. This network had been built in secret over 60 years, allowing instant coordination between forces separated by thousands of light years. "All stations, this is Admiral Carter," he announced. "Operation Sleeping Giant is now active. Maintain concealment until Phase 2 authorization. The enemy still believes we are weak. Let them continue believing until it is too late." Throughout human space, thousands of hidden installations received the message. Military bases disguised as research stations, weapons factories built inside, mining asteroids and fleets concealed in empty star systems all began final preparations for war. Admiral Ben Carter stood in the deepest level of Cheyenne Mountain, watching the final preparations for humanity's greatest gamble. The command center buzzed with quiet activity as hundreds of technicians and officers coordinated the most complex military operation in human history. Captain Steve Walsh approached with a data pad containing the latest intelligence reports. His face was grim but determined. "Admiral, our deep space monitoring network is fully active," Steve reported. "We have eyes on every major power fleet in the galaxy. The scope of their invasion force is even larger than we expected." Ben looked at the main display screen, which showed the true tactical situation. Red markers indicated alien fleet positions throughout the galaxy. The numbers were staggering. "How many ships are they bringing?" Ben asked. "The Kron Empire has committed 1,200 warships to this operation," Steve replied. "The Veil Consortium is deploying 800 of their most advanced vessels. The Elder Syndicate has activated fleets that have been in storage for centuries, adding another 600 ships." Ben felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. Nearly 3,000 enemy ships were converging on human space. If humanity's secret preparations failed, the species would be extinct within a week. "What about smaller powers?" Ben asked. "Most are staying neutral, but 47 species have contributed ships to support the major powers," Steve replied. "They want to be on the winning side when this is over." Ben understood their logic. In a galaxy where might made right, smaller species survived by supporting whoever was strongest. They had no way of knowing that humanity was about to change the rules of that game forever. Dr. Amy Peterson entered the command center, carrying the final technical specifications for humanity's secret weapons. As head of the Terran Advanced Research Division, she had spent 30 years developing technology that would shock the galaxy. "Admiral Carter, all weapon systems are ready for deployment," Amy announced. "The quantum phase torpedoes have been loaded onto our stealth ships. The antimatter missiles are armed and targeted. The space-time distortion cannons have passed all final tests." Ben reviewed the technical data with amazement. These weapons represented a completely different approach to space combat. While alien species had focused on bigger guns and stronger shields, humanity had developed ways to attack that made conventional defenses useless. "Dr. Peterson, explain the quantum phase torpedoes one more time," Ben requested. Amy activated a holographic display showing the weapon's design. "The torpedoes exist in quantum superposition until they reach their target. Enemy shields cannot stop them because they are not entirely in normal space. When they detonate, they cause the target's own matter to convert to energy." "And the space-time distortion cannons?" Ben asked. "They bend space around the target, creating artificial gravity wells that crush ships from the inside," Amy explained. "No amount of armor can protect against having space itself turned into a weapon." Ben realized that humanity had not just been building a larger fleet. They had been developing an entirely new form of warfare that would make the galaxy's established military powers obsolete overnight. Commander Paul Jenkins reported from Jupiter, where hidden shipyards were releasing the final squadrons of humanity's secret fleet. "Admiral Carter, Shipyard 7 has deployed all vessels," Paul announced over the communication system. 237 ships are now in deep space, completely invisible to enemy sensors. Similar reports came in from hidden facilities throughout the solar system. Shipyards in the asteroid belt, inside gas giant atmospheres, and even on the dark side of the moon were releasing vessels that had been built in complete secrecy. "Total fleet status report," Ben requested. 2,412. "Ships are now deployed," reported Commander Linda Hayes from the Fleet Coordination Center. "All crews are at battle stations. All weapon systems are armed and ready. All stealth systems are functioning perfectly." Ben felt a moment of pride in what humanity had accomplished. While the galaxy saw a species with 300 outdated ships. The truth was that humans had built the most advanced fleet in galactic history. But ships and weapons were only part of the preparation. Agent Nicole Scott, still undercover on the Kron homeworld, was providing crucial intelligence about enemy plans and weaknesses. "Admiral Carter, this is Agent Scott," came her coded transmission. "I have obtained complete battle plans for the Kron invasion. They are dividing their forces into 3 main attack groups targeting Earth, New Virginia, and the Kepler Research Station." Ben studied the enemy plan with growing confidence. The Kron were making exactly the mistakes humanity had hoped for. They were concentrating their forces for maximum psychological impact, assuming that humans would surrender after seeing overwhelming force. "What about their defensive preparations?" Ben asked. "Minimal," Nicole replied. "They are so confident of victory that they have left their own territory almost undefended. Most of their home fleet is committed to the invasion. This was exactly what humanity had planned for. While the major powers focused on attacking human space, their own worlds would be vulnerable to counterattack." Dr. Linda Hayes, head of humanity's Xenopsychology division, entered the command center with her final analysis of alien military thinking. "Admiral Carter, I have completed my study of enemy command structures and decision-making patterns," Linda announced. "All 3 major powers suffer from the same weakness: overconfidence based on past success." "Explain," Ben requested, the Burr. "Kron Empire has conquered every species they have fought for 2 centuries, Linda said. "They cannot imagine losing to a younger species. The Veil Consortium believes their technology is so advanced that no one can challenge them. The Elder Syndicate thinks their experience makes them unbeatable." Ben realized that humanity's greatest weapon was not quantum torpedoes or stealth ships. It was the enemy's own arrogance. Captain Ryan Torres reported from deep space, where his stealth squadron was shadowing the main Kron battle fleet. "Admiral Carter, the enemy is maintaining standard formation," Ryan announced. "They are not using any special defensive measures. They appear to believe they are facing no serious opposition." Ben smiled grimly. "Captain Torres, maintain surveillance and prepare for Phase 2 operations. Do not engage until you receive direct authorization." Similar reports came in from human forces throughout the galaxy. Captain Tony Murphy was tracking the Veil Consortium's main fleet. Commander Sarah Williams was monitoring Elder Syndicate movements. All reported the same thing. The enemy was approaching human space with no awareness of the trap being prepared. The final piece of humanity's preparation was the most important: coordination. For 60 years, humans had been building a secret communication network that allowed instant contact between forces separated by thousands of light years. Admiral Carter, the quantum communication array is fully operational, reported Colonel Janet Brown from the Communications Center. We can coordinate simultaneous attacks across the entire galaxy with zero-time delay. This was technology that no other species possessed. While alien fleets had to rely on slower-than-light communications over long distances, humanity could coordinate their entire fleet in real time. Ben activated the master communication system and addressed every human commander in the galaxy. All stations. This is Admiral Carter. Operation Sleeping Giant is entering final phase. Enemy fleets will reach human space in 8 hours. All forces are to maintain concealment until Phase 3 authorization. Remember, we get only one chance to surprise them. Make it count. Throughout human space, hidden bases and concealed fleets received the message. Weapons that had been developed in secret for decades were armed and ready. Ships that existed on no official record were positioning for attack. Personnel who had trained their entire lives for this moment were taking their battle stations. Ben looked at the tactical display one final time. In 8 hours, the most powerful military forces in galactic history would enter human space, expecting to find a weak species ready to surrender. Instead, they would discover that they had walked into the most sophisticated trap ever conceived. The major powers had spent centuries conquering younger species through overwhelming force. They had grown comfortable with easy victories against inferior opponents, but humanity was not inferior, and this would not be an easy victory. All departments, report final status, Ben commanded. Weapon systems, fully operational. Fleet deployment, complete and undetected. Intelligence network, active and reporting. Communication array, functioning perfectly. Stealth technology, all systems operational. Ben took a deep breath. In a few hours, the galaxy would learn that humanity had been preparing for this day since the moment they first met an alien species. The laughing would stop, the mockery would end, and the major powers would face the consequences of underestimating the human spirit. All stations, stand by for Phase 3 authorization, Ben announced. The sleeping giant is about to wake up. Admiral Thex of the Krone Empire stood on the bridge of his flagship Dominator, watching the edge of the Sol system grow larger on his screens. Behind him, 800 Kron warships moved in perfect formation, ready to crush humanity's pathetic resistance. Admiral, we are detecting minimal defensive activity, reported his tactical officer. Our intelligence was correct. The humans appear to have only a few dozen ships in the entire system. Thex smiled, showing his sharp teeth. This would be the easiest conquest in Kron history. The humans had spent the past week dismantling their own defenses and broadcasting surrender messages. Now all that remained was to accept their submission and divide their territory among the major powers. Signal the fleet, Thex commanded. Maintain attack formation but hold fire. We want the humans to see our overwhelming force before they surrender. What Admiral Thex did not know was that Captain Ryan Torres was watching his every move from the Bridge of Earth's Vengeance, a human dreadnought that was completely invisible to Kron sensors. Admiral, the enemy fleet is entering the outer system, Ryan reported through the quantum communication network. They are maintaining standard formation with no defensive screening. They appear completely unaware of our presence. Admiral Ben Carter received Ryan's report in the Cheyenne Mountain Command Center, along with similar messages from human forces throughout the galaxy. The trap was working perfectly. All stations, this is Admiral Carter, Ben announced. Enemy, Fleets are now committed to their attack positions. Prepare for Phase 3 authorization. Ben looked at the main tactical display. The Kron Empire's invasion fleet was entering human space from the galactic north. The Veil Consortium was approaching from the east with their advanced technology ships. The Elder Syndicate was moving in from the south with ancient, but powerful, dreadnoughts. All three enemy fleets were exactly where humanity wanted them. "Admiral Carter, should we begin the reveal?" asked Colonel Steve Walsh. Ben shook his head. "Not yet. Let them get deeper into the system. I want them fully committed before we show our hand." Aboard the Dominator, Admiral Thex was growing impatient. His fleet had been traveling for days, and he wanted to finish this quickly so he could return home to celebrate his easy victory. "Communications, hail the human fleet," Thex ordered. "Tell them they have one chance to surrender unconditionally." The response came from Admiral Kate Davis, commanding humanity's public fleet from the bridge of the cruiser Liberty Bell. "This is Admiral Davis of the Terran Defense Force," Kate's voice came through the speakers. "Admiral Thex, you are entering human space without authorization. Please state your intentions." Thex laughed loudly. "Human Admiral, you know exactly why we are here. Your species has been judged by the Galactic Council. Surrender now, and your people will be treated with mercy." "Admiral Thex, humanity rejects the Council's illegal demands," Kate replied. "We ask you to withdraw from our territory immediately." Thex's laughter stopped. He had expected immediate surrender, not defiance from such a weak species. "Human Admiral, look at your sensors," Thex said, his voice becoming dangerous. "You have 50 ships. I have 800. Do not force me to demonstrate the consequences of resistance." What Thex could not see was that Kate Davis was smiling as she prepared to give the response that would change galactic history forever. "Admiral Thex," Kate said calmly, "I think you should look at your sensors more carefully." Suddenly, space around the Kron fleet began to shimmer and distort. What had appeared to be empty space revealed itself to contain hundreds of human warships, their stealth systems deactivating in perfect coordination. "Impossible!" shouted the Kron tactical officer. "Sir, I am detecting over 400 human vessels in our immediate area. They were completely invisible until now." Thex stared at his screens in shock. The ships appearing around his fleet were not the primitive vessels his intelligence had described. These were massive, sleek warships using technology he had never seen before. Captain Ryan Torres activated his ship's communication system, broadcasting on all frequencies so that every alien vessel could hear. "Admiral Thex, this is Captain Torres of the Terran Space Navy. You are surrounded and outgunned. I recommend you reconsider your invasion plans." Thex felt panic rising in his chest, but his warrior training took over. "All ships, attack formation. Destroy the human vessels!" The Kron fleet opened fire with their heaviest weapons, expecting to blast the human ships out of space. Energy beams and kinetic projectiles that could destroy planets struck the human vessels with devastating force. Nothing happened. The human ships absorbed the attacks without even slowing down. Their quantum phase armor existed partially outside normal space, making conventional weapons useless against them. "Sir, our weapons are having no effect," reported the Kron weapons officer, his voice filled with terror. "Impossible! Nothing can survive a full fleet bombardment," Thex shouted. Captain Torres's voice came through the communication system again, calm and professional. "Admiral Thex, you have just witnessed the difference between your technology and ours. Now let us show you what our weapons can do." The human fleet opened fire. Quantum phase torpedoes passed through Kron shields like they did not exist, detonating inside enemy ships and converting their hull material directly into energy. Space-time distortion cannons created artificial gravity, wells that crushed vessels from the inside out. Antimatter missiles struck with the force of small stars, vaporizing everything within kilometers of their impact points. In 30 seconds, half of the Kron invasion fleet was destroyed. "Admiral, we are receiving emergency communications from the other invasion fleets," reported the Kron communications officer, his voice shaking with fear. Thex listened in horror as similar reports came in from across the galaxy. The Veil Consortium's advanced fleet was being systematically destroyed by human ships that appeared out of nowhere. The Elder Syndicate's ancient dreadnoughts were being torn apart by weapons that made their shields useless. Everywhere the major powers had sent invasion fleets, they were discovering the same terrifying truth. Humanity had been hiding military capabilities that made their own forces obsolete. Admiral Ben Carter stood in the Cheyenne Mountain Command Center, watching the tactical display as human forces across the galaxy engaged the enemy. The plan was working even better than he had hoped. "Admiral, initial engagement reports," announced Colonel Steve Walsh. "Kron Fleet Alpha has lost 60% of their vessels in the first minute of combat. Veil Consortium forces are retreating. From 3 systems, Elder Syndicate dreadnoughts are requesting emergency assistance." Ben felt a moment of satisfaction, but the battle was far from over. "Status of our own forces?" "Minimal casualties reported," Steve replied. "The enemy weapons are largely ineffective against our quantum phase armor. Our stealth technology allowed us to achieve complete tactical surprise." But the most important part of the revelation was not just the technology, it was the scope of humanity's deception. "Admiral Carter, this is Captain Tony Murphy reporting from the Veil Consortium border," came a transmission from deep space. "We have discovered their main supply depot completely undefended. The entire consortium home fleet was committed to the invasion." Similar reports came in from across the galaxy. Captain Sarah Williams had found Elder Syndicate worlds protected by only a few obsolete patrol ships. Agent Nicole Scott reported that the Kron homeworld's defenses had been stripped to support the invasion force. Ben realized that humanity's strategy had worked perfectly. By appearing weak and helpless, they had convinced the major powers to commit everything to the invasion. Now those same powers were defenseless against counterattack. "All fleet commanders, this is Admiral Carter," Ben announced. "Begin Phase 4 operations. Target enemy home systems and strategic installations. Show them the price of aggression." Throughout the galaxy, human fleets that had been hidden for decades began appearing in alien space. Ships that had been disguised as merchant vessels revealed their true military nature. Research stations that had appeared peaceful activated hidden weapon systems. The major powers had spent centuries conquering younger species through overwhelming force. Now they were experiencing what it felt like to be on the receiving end of superior military technology. Admiral Thex tried desperately to rally his remaining ships, but it was hopeless. The human vessels moved through space with impossible speed and agility. Their weapons struck with pinpoint accuracy across distances that should have been impossible. Their defenses made them virtually invulnerable to return fire. "Admiral, we are receiving a surrender offer from the human fleet," reported his communications officer. Thex felt his pride and his military career crumbling around him. The species he had dismissed as primitive was offering him mercy after demonstrating their complete superiority. Captain Torres's voice came through the speakers one more time. "Admiral Thex, you have seen what happens when you underestimate humanity. Your fleet is defeated, your invasion has failed, and your home worlds are now under threat. I suggest you contact your government and recommend they reconsider their policy toward my species. Thex realized that in the space of 30 minutes, the balance of power in the galaxy had shifted completely. The major powers were no longer. Admiral Ben Carter stood before the main tactical display in Cheyenne Mountain, watching as humanity's hidden fleets emerged from decades of concealment. The defensive phase of the operation had been a complete success. Now it was time to show the galaxy that humanity would not simply defend themselves, they would take the fight to their enemies. Admiral, all enemy invasion fleets have been neutralized or are in full retreat, reported Colonel Steve Walsh. We are ready to begin counterstrike operations. Ben nodded grimly. The major powers had made a critical mistake by committing almost their entire military strength to the invasion of human space. Now their home systems were virtually defenseless. Execute Phase 4, Ben commanded. All fleet commanders are authorized to begin offensive operations against enemy strategic targets. Throughout the galaxy, human ships that had been hidden for decades began moving toward alien territory. But these were not random attacks motivated by revenge. Every target had been carefully chosen to cripple the major powers' ability to continue their aggression. Captain Tony Murphy commanded the human squadron approaching the Veil Consortium's primary research facility at Nexus 7. The facility was supposedly hidden inside a nebula and protected by the most advanced defensive systems in the galaxy. Captain, we are detecting the facility, reported his tactical officer. Sensors show minimal defensive activity. Most of their security fleet must have been sent to attack human space. Tony smiled grimly. For 5 years he had posed as a merchant, trader, making regular deliveries to consortium facilities. During that time he had carefully mapped their defenses and identified their weaknesses. Now he was returning with a very different cargo. All ships attack formation, Tony commanded. Target the primary research labs and manufacturing centers. We want to cripple their technological advantage without unnecessary casualties. The human ships opened fire with precision strikes. Quantum torpedoes passed through the facility's shields and disabled specific sections without destroying the entire complex. The Veil Consortium's most advanced research projects were rendered useless in minutes. Captain Murphy, this is Admiral Carter, came a transmission from Earth. Excellent work. Nexus 7 was their primary weapons development center. This will set their military technology back by decades. Similar operations were taking place across consortium space. Commander Sarah Williams was leading the blockade of their main trade routes, cutting off the flow of resources that powered their economy. Other human forces were systematically dismantling the network of monitoring stations that the consortium used to spy on younger species. The Elder Syndicate was facing their own nightmare as human fleets appeared in systems they had controlled for millennia. Commander Linda Hayes led the attack on their central archives, where the Syndicate stored thousands of years of accumulated knowledge and strategic intelligence. Commander, we have breached their primary data storage facility, reported her intelligence officer. The Elders have records of every species they have subjugated, every weakness they have exploited, every colony they have stolen. Linda nodded. Download everything and broadcast it on open channels. Let the galaxy see exactly how the Elder Syndicate has been manipulating smaller species for centuries. The revelation of the Syndicate's secret files would destroy their carefully maintained image as wise guardians of galactic civilization. The smaller species would finally understand how they had been used and controlled, but the most satisfying operation was taking place in Kron space, where the Empire's brutal military machine was being systematically dismantled. Captain Ryan Torres had been given the honor of attacking the Kron Empire's primary military academy on Threx Prime. This was where the Empire trained its future generals and developed its conquest strategies. "Captain, the Academy's defenses are pathetic," reported his weapons officer. "They have only a few obsolete patrol boats for protection." Ryan felt a moment of satisfaction. The Kron had always believed their homeworld was invulnerable because their fleet was so powerful. They had never imagined that an enemy could strike at the heart of their territory. "Disable their military infrastructure, but avoid civilian casualties," Ryan commanded. "We want to show them that we are better than they are." The human attack was precise and devastating. Military bases that had stood for centuries were reduced to scrap metal. Weapons factories that had supplied the Empire's endless wars were shut down permanently. The Academy itself was left intact, but surrounded by disabled defensive systems, a clear message that humanity could have destroyed it completely if they had chosen to do so. Agent Nicole Scott, still undercover on the Kron homeworld, was providing real-time intelligence on the Empire's response to the human attacks. "Admiral Carter, this is Agent Scott," came her coded transmission. "The Kron government is in complete panic. Their military leaders are demanding immediate reinforcements, but they have no ships left to send. Emperor Gavok is considering a complete surrender." Ben felt a moment of satisfaction, but he knew the job was not finished. "Agent Scott, what is the civilian population's reaction?" "Many are celebrating," Nicole replied. "They are tired of the Empire's endless wars. Some are saying that humanity has freed them from their own government's brutality." This was exactly what Ben had hoped for. Humanity was not trying to conquer the galaxy like the major powers had done. They were trying to create a new system where species could coexist peacefully. Dr. Linda Hayes, monitoring the psychological impact of the counterstrikes, provided her analysis from the command center. "Admiral Carter, our attacks are having the desired effect," Linda reported. "The major powers are not just losing militarily, they are losing the fear and respect that maintained their control over smaller species." Ben looked at the tactical display, where hundreds of green markers showed human forces operating throughout the galaxy. For 60 years, humanity had prepared for this moment. Every ship, every weapon, every strategy had been designed for maximum psychological impact. "What about the smaller species?" Ben asked. "They are beginning to rebel," Linda replied with obvious satisfaction. "Species that have been oppressed for centuries are declaring independence. The major powers are too busy dealing with our attacks." To suppress the uprisings, this was the most important part of humanity's strategy. They were not just defeating the major powers, they were inspiring the galaxy's oppressed species to fight for their own freedom. Captain Danny Sullivan, commanding the merchant vessel Golden Horizon, was conducting a very different kind of operation. He was delivering medical supplies and humanitarian aid to species that had been abandoned by the major powers during the crisis. "Captain Sullivan, this is Governor Zelf of the Andromedan colonies," came a grateful transmission. "The supplies you have provided will save thousands of lives. We had no idea that humans were capable of such generosity." Danny smiled. "Governor Zelf, humanity believes that all species deserve to live free from oppression. We are happy to help." This was the soft power component of humanity's revelation. While their military demonstrated superior technology, their civilian efforts showed superior values. The galaxy was learning that humans were not trying to replace one set of tyrants with another. Admiral Kate Davis, commanding the public human fleet, was coordinating with the hidden forces to present a unified response to alien attempts at negotiation. Admiral Carter, we are receiving surrender offers from all three major powers, Kate reported. They want to negotiate an immediate ceasefire. Ben considered this carefully. The counterstrikes had achieved their primary objectives. The major powers' military forces were crippled, their strategic assets were destroyed, and their control over smaller species was broken. What are they offering? Ben asked. Complete withdrawal from human space, recognition of human sovereignty, and formal apologies for their aggression, Kate replied. They also want to discuss new treaties for peaceful coexistence. Ben realized that humanity had reached a critical decision point. They could continue the attacks and completely destroy the major powers, but that would make them the same kind of tyrants they had just defeated. Or they could accept the surrender and work toward building a better galaxy. All fleet commanders, this is Admiral Carter, Ben announced. Cease offensive operations but maintain defensive positions. The enemy has requested negotiations and we are willing to listen. Throughout the galaxy, human forces stopped their attacks but remained ready to resume if necessary. The message was clear. Humanity was strong enough to destroy their enemies but wise enough to seek peace. The revelation was complete. In the space of hours, humanity had transformed from apparent victims to the galaxy's dominant military power. But more importantly, they had shown that strength could be used to protect the weak rather than exploit them. The major powers had learned that laughing at humanity had been the worst mistake in their long history. Now they would have to live in a galaxy where humans set the rules, and those rules would be very different from what they were used to. Admiral Thex, floating in an escape pod after his flagship was destroyed, watched human ships patrolling the space where his mighty fleet had once been. He realized that his species had awakened something that should have been left sleeping. Admiral Jake Morrison walked into the Grand Assembly Hall on Nexus Prime for the second time in 2 weeks. The massive chamber looked exactly the same, but everything else had changed completely. Where once the major powers had sat in positions of authority, now their representatives occupied smaller sections with obvious nervousness. The human delegation took their seats in the center of the hall, in the position traditionally reserved for the galaxy's dominant power. Jake could feel thousands of alien eyes watching him, but this time the attention was filled with respect and fear rather than mockery. Chancellor Vex of the Kron Empire sat hunched in his chair, his warrior pride broken by the complete destruction of his invasion fleet. Prime Calculator. Zin of the Veil Consortium flickered weakly, its crystalline structure dimmed by the loss of their technological supremacy. Ambassador Korath of the Elder Syndicate looked ancient and defeated, his species carefully maintained, mystique shattered by human intelligence operations. The council chairman, the same four-armed being who had presided over humanity's humiliation, now spoke with obvious nervousness. The Galactic Council recognizes Admiral Morrison of the Terran. Federation, the chairman announced. The floor is yours, Admiral. Jake stood slowly, allowing the moment to build dramatic tension. Every species in the hall was wondering what humanity would demand now that they held all the power. Honorable representatives, Jake began, his voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. 2 weeks ago, this assembly voted to restrict humanity's freedom and independence. You demanded that we surrender our colonies, submit to technological oversight, and accept permanent monitoring of our activities. Murmurs rippled through the hall as species remembered their confident votes to crush the upstart human species. The major powers assured you that humanity was weak and primitive, Jake continued. They told you that we were thieves and aggressors who needed to be controlled by our betters. Some of you even laughed when we protested these accusations. Jake activated a holographic display showing the battle statistics from the past week. The numbers were staggering. Over 2,000 enemy ships destroyed, dozens of military installations disabled, and 3 major power governments on the verge of collapse. The galaxy has now seen the truth, Jake said calmly. Humanity is not weak. We are not primitive, and we will not be controlled by anyone. Chancellor Vex stood with obvious effort, his massive frame trembling with suppressed rage. Human Admiral, your species has committed acts of aggression against sovereign powers. You have violated the territorial integrity of multiple systems. This is an act of war. Jake turned to face the Kron representative with a cold smile. Chancellor Vex, your own invasion fleet attacked human space without provocation. By galactic law, we had every right to defend ourselves and pursue retreating enemy forces into their own territory. You destroyed our academy. You attacked civilian facilities, Vex shouted. We disabled military installations that were being used to plan further attacks against peaceful species, Jake replied. Our forces took great care to avoid civilian casualties, which is more than can be said for your own military operations. Jake activated another display showing the humanitarian efforts during the crisis. While alien fleets were retreating in disorder, human ships had been delivering medical supplies and food to species abandoned by their former protectors. Furthermore, Jake continued, our intelligence operations have revealed the true scope of the major powers' crimes against smaller species. The Elder Syndicate's secret files show centuries of manipulation and exploitation. The Veil Consortium's monitoring network was used to steal technology from developing species. The Kron Empire's expansion plans included the conquest of 47 peaceful worlds. The revelation sent shockwaves through the assembly. Representatives of smaller species began shouting angrily at the major powers, demanding explanations. For centuries of hidden oppression, Prime Calculator Zin floated forward, its crystalline form pulsing with agitation. The Veil Consortium demands to know how humanity obtained classified information from our secure facilities. Jake's smile widened. Prime Calculator, for 60 years, your species has underestimated human intelligence. You thought we were too primitive to pose a threat, so you never bothered to protect yourselves from our observation. The truth was even more devastating than Zin had feared. Agent Nicole Scott and dozens of other human operatives had been working inside alien organizations for decades, gathering intelligence and preparing for this moment. Ambassador Korath of the Elder Syndicate spoke with barely controlled fury. Human Admiral, your species has violated the natural order of the galaxy. Young species should serve their elders, not challenge them. This chaos you have created will destroy galactic civilization. Jake felt his anger rising at the elders' arrogance. Ambassador Korath, the natural order you defend is built on the oppression of weaker species by stronger ones. That order ends today. Jake gestured to include the entire assembly. Humanity proposes a new framework for galactic governance, one based on equality rather than domination, one where technological advancement is shared rather than hoarded, one where disputes are resolved through negotiation rather than force. The proposal that Jake outlined was revolutionary. Instead of the major powers dictating policy to smaller species, all decisions would require consensus among multiple groups. No single species would be allowed to dominate others through military force. Technology and resources would be shared to help developing species rather than being used to maintain control. "This is impossible," Chancellor Vex protested. "The galaxy requires strong leadership. Weak species cannot govern themselves." Jake's response was calm but firm. "Chancellor, the weak species you dismiss have proven quite capable of governing themselves when not oppressed by their neighbors. The rebellions currently taking place throughout your territory demonstrate that your subjects prefer freedom to your protection." The truth was that human military success had inspired oppressed species throughout the galaxy to demand their independence. The major powers were facing internal revolts in addition to external defeat. Captain Lisa Rodriguez, sitting beside Jake, activated a communication system that reached every ship and facility in human space. "This is Captain Rodriguez, speaking for the Terran Federation," Lisa announced. "To all species seeking freedom from oppression, humanity offers our support and protection. We will defend any species that declares independence from tyrannical rule." The offer was not just diplomatic posturing. Human fleets were already positioned to protect newly independent worlds from retaliation by their former masters. The council chairman called for order as the assembly erupted in excited discussion. Many smaller species were openly celebrating the end of the major powers' dominance. "Admiral Morrison," the chairman said, "what specific terms does humanity propose for the new galactic order?" Jake had been preparing for this question since the operation began. The terms he outlined would reshape galactic civilization. First, all species would have equal representation in galactic governance, regardless of their military or technological power. Second, the use of force to expand territory or subjugate other species would be prohibited. Third, technology sharing agreements would help developing species advance without depending on more established powers. Most importantly, a new peacekeeping force would be established to prevent future aggression. This force would be commanded jointly by multiple species, but would rely heavily on human military technology to ensure effectiveness. Chancellor Vex.